Hello, welcome to all my combo lords joining me today. I was going to start this live stream in the combo classroom, but it's super wet out there. It's been raining like wild, so we're gonna have to do much of today's live stream here in my room, which, I'm getting comfy here, so it's okay. I put on some pajama pants and socks, which I guess half of that is irregular for me because I don't wear socks in the combo classroom. You need some shoes out there. There could be broken glass and stuff. But the pajama pants I do wear occasionally while I'm filming anyway, sometimes even out in public. I think it should be more normalized. In any case, we're going to pull open my computer here to discuss some fun things about numbers, some fun facts, and some general combo class assembly like updates. You see, for one, I joked in the last live stream that I had perhaps gotten a curse while beginning to film an episode. I had been filming a pair of episodes, one of which, the beginning I joked, gave me a curse because the episode had a large portion about the number 666, which some people did not like. You see, they really didn't like. If you look at my last stream, there's still comments on it after the fact about how I must come to Jesus and embrace Jesus. And I never said anything wrong about Jesus. I'm okay with whatever ideals are attributed to Jesus. But some people don't like that number. I cannot hate the number 666. It's doubly triangular. It is a base 10 rep digit. And it has many other fun properties. But I wanted to mostly talk about truly cursed numbers. Numbers that have the type of cursed number we're looking at in this episode will be numbers that we can create a representation for that requires very few symbols and does have a concrete definition. But that symbol or little string of symbols is not nearly enough to capture to a human brain any traits about the number, not only not able to see the magnitude of the number, but hardly able to know anything about it. And now I think the curse has been lifted because I have recovered from COVID that I caught. I have not burnt myself again since then, but who knows for sure because we're not done filming that episode. I did put out an episode on my combo class channel that make sure you're all tuned into. That on the combo class channel, I put out a snack break of sorts, but the craziest one yet, about me cooking eggs for up to a day for some strange experiments. Yes, not cooking different eggs. It's not one of those YouTuber things where they say, I did blank for a day. But they're really just doing miniature versions of blank spread out throughout the day. In this case, there were singular eggs I cooked for a day. So that's a fun snack break to make sure you see on the combo class channel. But the next episode, which should be out this weekend, I'm almost done filming, and hopefully I don't catch any curses in the rest of it because I've finished the 666 portion, and now we're on to the rest of the episode. So to any people who think I'm bad or something for when I talk about that, you might not like the next combo class episode, which will have a portion about this cursed number, but it's not actually cursed. So just know, watch the episode, and then you're allowed to leave comments about I need to come to Jesus, but watch the whole episode first. So, thank you for our commenter saying hi so far with some egg suggestions. 6 eggs in 6 liters for 6 hours. That could be cursed. I did hear a comment saying, what if we cooked an egg for a year? And I was like, yeah, I've thought about that would be pretty cool to be the first human to cook an egg for a year. There are eggs that are fermented for that long at points in history, but what if I could cook an egg for a year? Somehow have a station where a slow cooker had somebody on duty watching it or checking it every once in a while. Could you have an egg not spoil if you were cooking it at a low flame for a year? I don't know. Maybe someday we'll try that in grade -7. right now we are at a somewhat point that's significant in the grade. You see in this title I put grade -7. I'll take some notes about that here to note. Or no, grade -8/3. I was thinking about something else. We're not in grade -7 yet. We're not cooking the year eggs. Grade -8/3. What do I mean by that? Well, I've said that we're in grade -2. Now, some people think that if I were to say, where are we? Because we've done grade -1 and we're partway through grade -2. Some people feel like we should be calling that 1.5 that we're at because we've done 1.5 grades. But the way it works is sort of weird because normally you say first grade and you assume that means you can also call that like grade 1. You could say second grade is grade 2. So normally if you said I'm in grade 1.5, you'd assume that means you're between grades 1 and 2. Not that, you wouldn't call that grade 2.5. If you said you're at grade 2.5, you'd assume that means you're between grades 2 and 3. So we kind of have to go with that convention where we're starting from 1 going upward as opposed from 0, which seems to throw it off that we're calling it grade 2.5, or no, we're at about grade -2. Oh, this is funny. You know how I just said this is too cursed and I should stop doing it? Well, this is the actual fraction. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to. It's the actual fraction. This is the -8/3. Didn't even think of that. We're actually at a 2/3 point because I usually judge where I'm at in the grade more so on my full episodes I put on my combo class channel. And those episodes, I put 36 out for a reason because I hope to someday convince society to look forward to the future when, after an asteroid hits and society rebuilds, we will rebuild in base 6. I'm writing out 6 because if I say base 6, that's not what it would call itself. It would call itself base 10. Most bases call themselves base 10. I mean, it wouldn't call itself base TEN, but it would call itself base 10. So we'll write out base 6 to be extra clear of which number we mean. And base 6 would be cool for the future. So then when we judge how many episodes we're in grade -1, there would be that many episodes because that's 36 in the base. Now, I think 36 episodes will be the amount in grade -2 as well. So under that metric, I have released 2/3 of 36, which is 24 episodes, on the grade -2 so far of our official episodes. There's also all the content on this channel, which has included many shorts, which I will get back to soon, included many live streams and such. But I'm referring to my combo class channel where we have these more concrete little lessons or experiments or video art projects. Now, since we've done 24 episodes, which are in a playlist, just to note, if you go on the combo class channel, there are playlists for the grades in order. We are 2/3 of the way through, which, although it seems weird calling it this grade that we're at, because we've only done 1.6 amounts of grades, but that's how the grading system works. It starts at 1. Now, to balance that in my head and make it feel better, like, ugh, these systems are weird. Why? I need to call it this to match how grades normally sound for the human intuition. But we haven't done the absolute value of this amount of grades yet. The way I balance that in my head is by saying that grade 0, which covers grade 0 to -1, was a thing that was this just very rare stretch of my past that I have a lot of footage from, some of which I've shared, some of which I can't share yet, but I will someday. There are many reasons I can't share all the footage. You know, there could be personal reasons, legal reasons, reasons of I need to first implant certain philosophies before I show certain chaos. Now, grade 0 was a massive crazy sprawl, so that occurred as well. Just was less documented because it has been buried. Buried in a way I will reshare someday. So now that we are at this grade, oh man, my voice kind of hurts talking for this long. I'm not used to talking for this long after I recovered from COVID just a few days ago. So my voice is a little burnt out. I may need to grab some water in a second. But I can't resist doing an hour long or so live stream because I have a few fun things to share. So that was our little note that we're at that point of the grade in the last third of grade -2. You know, there will be 12 more official episodes. There will be obviously more live streams. I have fun with these, and there will be a lot more shorts. I will catch up the channel on the shorts as well. And I'll try and put out some random bonus videos. I filmed one the other day, but I'm just going to put it out to Patreon because it didn't work well. I'm going to refilm it and do a better version for everybody later. Now, subtractiplication. What is this thing in the title? Now, the first two things in the title are related. Subtractiplication and balanced bases. Now, what do I mean by subtractiplication? Well, I like making up nicknames for stuff. And a nickname that occurred recently in some live streams and in the second to latest Combo Class episode was numberations. These are when I apply a number mixed with an operation, then a number. So like +1 or +1 or -1 or +2 or ×7 or divided by 4 to the power of 2 squared something. These are numberations. Just a random nickname I made up for them. Because number and operation, we're combining them. So, as you may guess, this is a combo of subtraction and multiplication. It's not operation here, it's multiplication. So, why are we combining subtraction and multiplication? Because recently we already chatted about which things could we hit. And we didn't fully crack it because there's two questions. There's you're allowed an infinite amount of numberations. Which numbers can you hit? And then there's you have a finite batch of numberations. Which ones can you hit? Or if you were trying to create different finite batches, which one would be most efficient in terms of the amount of the number? Let's say we take a bunch of numberations. And the way we're going to apply these, if we have a bunch, is we're not using like PEMDAS or whatever. We're doing them one at a time. So if we started at 0, this would go 1, 2, 1, 1. That one was kind of boring. Let's say we do this instead. Now it'd be 1, 2, 2/3, 4/9. So that one's a little different. But we don't even have to get to fractions yet. We're not incorporating division quite yet because we didn't even fully look at subtraction. So the first question was things like, if I have like ×5, how many +1s in a row would I have to use or have access to be able to reach any natural number? And the answer is up to 4. I need to be able to use somewhere from 0 to 4 of them in this case because it's similar to base 5. This turns out to be like adding a 0 at the end in the base 5 representation. And then this is like stacking a digit between 0 and 4 at the end. So you're sort of building the number in a weird way. Like if I wanted to make like the number 13, I would go 1, or I would go +1 times 5. To get to 13, no, I would go +1 +1 times 5 +1 +1 +1. There I used less than 4 of them in a row. And what this was actually doing was building a base 5 representation of the number. We were going 1 at the end, or so we started with a 0, and then we're like, okay, replace it with a 1. Nope, add another. Okay, now add a 0 at the end. Okay, replace the last one with the 1. Nope, add another. Nope, add another. And in base 5, 2, 3 would be the representation for 13. So What about subtraction? Well, I hinted in my numberation episode that if we were allowed times 3, plus 1, and minus 1, each allowed to just be used up to once in a row. We could reach all of the natural numbers and all of the negative integers. And that it was similar to a base called balanced ternary. If you're unfamiliar with this, you can always look back on the combo class episode a little bit ago in this grade. In grade -2, we did a balanced ternary episode. Then it sort of came up again in the numberation episode. Now, what if we only allow subtraction? Well, the infinite question is going to be pretty simple, and it's going to relate to bases. We're really leading to a question about some strange efficiency. Now, as I hinted in some previous live streams, these questions I've been researching are actually related to a card game I'm making up. So I'm trying to make up a card game that is inspired by many games of the past. And I almost want it to be like a mix. This sounds absurd, but although it only uses cards, it's sort of reminiscent of a mix of Magic cards, which are a trading card game, poker games, and chess, which chess sounds a little out of the normal when you have cards, but you almost assemble a board of sorts with the cards. And I've been working on a cost structure for these cards, which is an important part to make many games work. That you can't just say you get to play one card per turn. That's kind of boring. You can't say you get to play any card whenever. That's like too easy to just do stuff. So some cards could have costs. And then you need things that build the cost with some sort of energy, or, they build something for you. In many trading card games, they have this sort of thing. In fact, like the game Yu-Gi-Oh! Has this less, and it makes it more so that now that they have so many cards out, players can assemble a deck that just goes, bam, I won on the first turn. You can sometimes do that in the Magic the Gathering cards, but less often because cards have costs. But I wanted to develop a better cost system than those, something more creative and new, something that I felt like hadn't been done before, but also something that could have an intense amount of strategy or analysis behind it, related to mathematics, that the analysis that players could put into the cards could even crack something about number theory. So, as I was going through that, I was figuring as you build resources in my game, perhaps you have things that you could put down as resources, like certain cards go face down as a resource, or something along those lines. But perhaps I could put them in some sorts of stacks. Like perhaps first I could put one there. Then if I wanted, I could either put another one there, or I could build on top of it. Now perhaps as I went onward with this process, I would have built like a couple 3s, maybe a 2, a couple 1s. I could have built all types of stuff. Maybe one of them, maybe I built pretty tall. Maybe I built a 5 over here too. Now, let's say at first that you could use each of these towers once a turn, and each of them could help create certain costs. But one key difference between how I want it to work than many games is that we want you to not be able to overshoot the cost. We don't want it to be that you can get more than enough. We want it to be that you must hit a precise number. So if my cost was 23, for example, I had to play a card or activate some ability on it. Well, it depends on what these can do. Let's say that any of them can add or multiply their amount. Well, I'll put bold on the top, one that would be like one, or that didn't work very well. I'll replace the top one with a line if we have activated it for the turn. which, like many card games do, we'll signify by turning the card sideways. Because these are going to be actual stacks of cards we're building. Now, and to those who don't care about the card game part, it will wrap back around to the pure number questions in a moment. I'm just sort of trying to give some backdrop on why I came to these questions and what these questions will also help me develop. Now, if I could multiply or add any of these, let's see how I would get to 23 from there. That was a random example I came up with, but I think we could probably do it. We could go, let's see, 9, 10, 20. How are we going to do this? How do we get to 23 from here? It's like a little puzzle, sort of. So, like our numbers right here were, we had a 3, a 3, a 2, a couple 1s, and a 5. We can, like, use each of these ones to add or multiply, starting from 0, and we're trying to get here. So it's sort of like, for now, a minigame puzzle, but we're not doing subtractiplication. We're doing, like, addiplication right here. But to check the addiplication, you know, how we would do that would be, let's see if we can get there. 15. Oh, we could, yeah, it's just enough that we could just do 5 times 3 plus the rest. Now, when we have addiplication, or these are just random nicknames I made up for them, like which combo of numerations were allowed, it's too easy to reach certain numbers with addiplication, in that if I say, what is the sum of all these? How many dots did I put down total? Well, here we've got 8, 10, 16. With 16 dots, if I had arranged them differently, which numbers could I get? With the addiplication, it turned out that too often we came back to something similar to a topic known as integer complexity, which I will make an episode about someday, which is a little different because it allows parentheses and equations. It has a somewhat different way of approaching relatively similar questions. And in integer complexity, which I'll explain more in the future, you can sort of create equations with parentheses a little more, rather than a chain of going up and down. The way I view this is sort of like times 2 minus 1, times 5 minus 2. We're like hopping up and down like little mountains, trying to reach a specific mountain. So the addiplication turned out to be too often that the best thing was a bunch of 1s, bunch of 2s, and a bunch of 3s. Occasionally something else. It was a little interesting when you have the occasionally something else. There is a lot of questions remaining within the integer complexity and within my numberation stuff. A lot of unsolved questions still. But in general, it not only didn't work as well for the card game, but when I was analyzing it, it was like, what's the best use of 10 dots? It was too often that you could create a stretch of like 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3 or whatever that would... Was that 10? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that was exactly 10. I accidentally did it right. That if you create something like that, you could do a stretch that covers a lot of numbers with a few gaps. The gaps are interesting. But I wanted more gaps. I wanted it to be that with an arrangement, with 10 dots, some ways of doing it hit these numbers, and other ways of doing it hit those numbers. Partially because I wanted strategy for the card game, so it wasn't just like you always want to do the same beginning moves. There's different things to do for different times or strategies. But partially to analyze the numbers. I found it interesting as well. So I figured, what if we make subtractiplication and we see with any... We're sort of making a non-PEMDAS equation where I would say like 2, because when we're doing subtractiplication, if I'm saying I can subtract or multiply numbers, but we're looking at the positive integers, we need to be able to start somewhere. If we start at 0, multiplying doesn't help, and subtraction goes the wrong way of what we're analyzing. And if we look at the negatives with subtractiplication, then it's the same as the positives with addiplication. So we want to be able to start with something. So it's sort of like we get a starting number, which I think of it as, let's say that we begin at 1 instead of beginning at 0. In that case, we're going to begin with a multiplier. And we can multiply 1 to get to our starting thing. So in this case, we're starting from a multiplicative nature, not an additive nature. We assume multiplication will be our first move. We start from 1. Another way of viewing that that's quite similar would be that our pool of our number is clear, empty at the beginning, and to start, our first number can be itself. Then the rest of them have to multiply or subtract. So we're doing like a non-PEMDAS equation of like 2 times 5 minus 3 times 2 or something. That gets me to 10, 7, times 2, I meant. So, like 10, 7, 14. But is that the most efficient way to get to 14? If we add up these numbers as if we were creating little towers that we could use once per turn in the game, which could either multiply, subtract, or be the starting number, which we could also see as we start at 1, and we multiplied that to start. These add up to 12. We can get to 14 easier, I think. We could start on what would be the best way to get to 14 would be to go 2 times 3 plus 1 times 2. So that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That only adds up to 8. That's far more efficient than this. So with 8, which numbers can we... Oh no, I was using addiplication there. It's not as easy. It's going to take a little more than 8. This is what we have to do. That's how we can get there with subtractiplication fastest. That has a sum, though, of 9. A little more, but still far more efficient than 12. So, with 9, for example, which numbers can I reach with subtractiplication? Well, let's look up a little chain of, with a given amount of numbers, can we get better than the number? Well, up through 5, we can't get better than the number. But at 6, we can make 6 with 5. 5 is actually when it gets. Like, we can do something more so. We can go times 2 times 3. We've only used 5, but we've made 6. However, to get to 7 is not as easy. Now, we're just going to assume it's 1 times that, and we're going to let the first one just be itself. Now, if we want to get to 7, here we'll put what number we're reaching. If we want to get to 7, we got to go 2 times 2 times 2 minus 1 is our most efficient way. That takes not only more than 6, but it takes more than 8. So with 8, we could get there faster. With 9, we could also get there faster. And then 10, it takes a little bit more. 11 is trickier. We have to go to 12 and go down. But here's the thing. So far, we've only used a minus 1. Will we ever want to use like either more than one minus 1 in a row, or in this experiment, equivalently, a minus more than 1? Will that ever help? Like, for example, if I'm looking at how to get to the number 21, I could go 2 times 2 times 2 minus 1. Remember, we're not doing PEMDAS order. They're following one after another. It's like we're spiking up and down on a little mountain graph. This sent me to 7, and then times 3. And that is a sum of 10. Can I get there any faster? Well, some of these here were interesting, like Maybe it was 22 or 23 that was interesting. It was, how do I get to that? Because 11, we get there with, we got to get to 12. We got to go 3 times 4, which times 2 times 2 would be equivalent here. Minus 1. Takes us 8. So over here, we're going to write how much they cost. By cost, we're referring to their digit sum. Not caring, you don't get more or less points if you're using multiplication or subtraction. Now, in my game, these are theoretically like if things had this cost, what turn we'd be able to play them. If you're able to stack resources in a way once per turn. So I'll explain the details about that more in the future. But to a degree, this is like things in my game that cost 8 might be playable on turn 6. But actually, I'm going to make them not playable till turn 7. The way I do that is by some of them have to live on one of the resources. So you'd need another like 1 over here for it to live on. I'll explain more about the game later. But really, things can't go off until turn 7. Most of the things cost more anyway. Now, to look at these higher ones, this, for example, 21, to get there cost me 10. 22, the quickest will probably be to double 11. A commenter asked if they missed about balanced bases. I didn't really explain that yet because I got sidetracked with my subtractiplication. So I suppose I should explain the balanced bases portion right now. Then we'll come back to the subtractiplication. The balanced bases relates to the subtractiplication because it's saying, what if we were allowed to use +1 up to 3 times? No, let's just say up to once in a row. And let's say we could use -1 up to 3 times in a row. Equivalently, we could have said we can use either -1, -2, or -3 once in a row. And then we wonder if we had an infinite amount of these. If we had however many we wanted, but we had a limit how many we could use in a row. What times something numberation would I need as a minimal times something that would reach every single, or actually a maximal we're looking for? Because we're looking at the rate, like if I had ×2, that would work with just the +1, kind of like binary. The ×2 would have to be unlimited, but let's say our times something is unlimited. How many times you use it in a row? What would be the biggest times something there that would work with this? Well, it turns out, interestingly, I was thinking about this, and the formula for it, I realized, is pretty simple. You take how many times you're allowed to use a plus, how many times you're allowed to use a minus, and add 1 more. And this is sort of a twist on a video I did recently. When I showed that these were each once in a row, I showed that it was 3. But here I wanted to show a sort of twist. If I had once and then 3 times, it turns out to be 5. Because that's 1 plus 3 plus an extra. The extra sort of represents our ability to have used 0, to have not done either of them. Why does this work? Well, base 5, which we talked about earlier in this stream, could be shown as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, next place. Or it could be looked at as, especially if we call it mod 5, which modular arithmetic just is sort of like looking at the last digit in the base. We could see it as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 as our things we could do in the base. Or we could see it as 0, or no, we could see it as like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1. We just need a string of 5 whole numbers that includes 0 somewhere, and it'll work for base 5. It like fits the mod right. And so this is not a balanced base. If I had said up to twice in a row for each of these, this would literally represent what's called balanced base 5. This is an imbalanced base, but it still works because, as I thought about it, you basically need how many pluses, how many minuses, plus an extra one to represent the 0. So, for example, if I had up to 7 in a row and up to 4 in a row, that would be 4, 7 times 12, because I got an extra one. So this would represent a weird version of base 12. And if I wanted a balanced one, I'd have to go to like 11, would be like up to 5 in a row, up to 5 in a row. That would be a balanced base 11. The main one I've discussed before is balanced ternary. So make sure you've seen that episode someday. If you haven't, make sure you've checked out the grade -2 playlist, which is 2/3 of the way through. Now, that's how this relates to balanced bases, but that's something that has a relatively simple answer. So although I may make more videos related to further twists on that, the main question I had was not if you had an unlimited amount, but as you're going to an unlimited amount, with a given amount so far, which numbers can you reach? So for example, with 6, I can reach the numbers up through 6. There would be a way to stack my things to do that. And I could reach these numbers. But then I'm interested in the way I'm doing it. If you stack on the number, if I had built this to make 6, I could not then instantly make this to make a 7 after, because I can't just add 1 onto one of these or add an extra 1 somewhere to create that. So it's, oh no, and this is, should say 5. Whoops. There we go. But with these, if you're adding them, it's a whole nother story. That will make my game quite complex, where if you have these in your hand, you're like, well, I could play either of these on turn 6. It's not actually going to quite work like that, because you're not going to get to be able to play them until turn 7, because they have to stack on another thing. I'll explain that another day. But assuming a simplified version, you could get this on turn 6. Well, you'd have to pick, if you also had some turn 7 options later, which of these is not just as good to play your turn 6, but which will build you toward your turn 7. Now, this is another thing. I've been very bad at checking and responding to emails. If anyone did send me any programming about other questions I've already had about programming stuff, I will respond to those as soon as possible. Just recovered from a long period of sicknesses, but we're getting back on track. And we're going to get further on track than ever. We're going to be inventing new tracks. But here, if anyone is bored and wants to comment or email me a further list of this, I am curious about what are the most efficient ways to build it and how much it takes. Some of them, 2 things are tied for efficiency. What was the example of that? There was one somewhere that 2 things were tied for efficiency. It was something. Did this work? Yeah. Let's see. Some of these are trickier, like 23. You got to think, well, I want to go 24, which we could do 3 times 2 times. It's times 2 and then some more 2s, but we could call that a times 2 and times 4. We'll just put them as 2s actually for now. We'll put them as primes, because why the heck not? Primes will make it all be the same. Then we won't have to think about when we clump them as 4s or what. They're all prime. What? Almost all primes. They're all primes now. Okay. Well, apart from the 1s. I know 1's not a prime. Okay. Now, this would be probably our best way to make 23, and that took 10 as well. That's funny. All of these took 10. So that'll be kind of cool in my game that I don't have to really make any weird restrictions on these. I can make on turn 10, you basically have this variety of options. 24 will actually be able to come down a little earlier. That's a turn 9er because that digit sum is 9. 25, it's probably just going to be 5 times 5 is the best. So that's another one that's a turn 10. Now, 27 comes surprisingly quick because 3s are really efficient at this. Someday we were going to cover a topic called the radix or radix economy of different bases, which shows this funny thing about how the number E shows up related to which bases are best at using digits in certain ways. And 3 is the whole number closest to E. And 3 gets some superpowers from that. It'll show up in the integer complexity episode. Certainly, this all also relates to how 3ven should be in the dictionary, but 3 maximizes certain things. You'll notice that 27 is going to be the largest number that we can make with 9 things. And in fact, it's might even be bigger than any we can make with 10 things. Are there any? Well, no, 30 is pretty efficient too. How much does that take? That takes 10. So yeah, I think 27, it's not bigger than that 10, but it's definitely bigger than all the 9s, and it's bigger than most of the 10s too. Turns out the 3s are the most efficient in a certain way. If I wanted to see what's the biggest number I could reach with something, I'll wait till the integer complexity episode to fully explain this, but think as a challenge to yourself if you want. To reach the biggest number, how would I use 3s and 2s in an interesting way, using multiplication to just reach the maximum? A clue is that 27 is the biggest I can make with 9. The biggest I can make with 8 is going to be 18. So we'll cover why I know that in the integer complexity episode, but you may notice some patterns. Also remember multiplication, the order does not matter, so I could have put these in other orders apart from when the minus comes. Also a reminder to anyone new, we are not using PEMDAS, BEDMAS, whatever style. These are in a chain of order. We're looking at how long it takes to reach the harder numbers. Like 13, I can't just do 13 on its own because that's way higher than the cost I would want to pay for it. So how can I reach 13? Well, we got to think about if I want to do 15 minus 2 or 14 minus 1. So 15 is 3 times 5. That gives me a cost of 8. 14 is kind of hard to make. 14, we got to do all of this for 7, then double it. And what that gives us for a cost is 9, which means that an alternate way of doing it is 3 times 5 minus 1. That was the one I found in my notes that I forgot about that I was looking for. This one has 2 ways that are equally good to make 9. 13 now, we got to see, do I want to subtract 1 from that or 2 from that? And it also has 2 ways, because I could do all this minus 1, which costs me 10 for 13. Or I could do all of this, but with a minus 2 instead. So this turns out interesting when we have a number that's right above another that costs 1 less than it, because then it sort of affects, especially if they're over a prime, because the prime we're going to want to build from subtracting from somewhere. So we sort of have these alternate ways to reach our best cost. That'll be fun for it once I turn this into a game, because if you want to play a card that costs 13, the quickest way to do it is by using 10 resources. There are other ways to do it, but this is the quickest. But there are 2 ways you could try and build your board to reach that quickest state. And if I had wanted to play other stuff on the meantime, like this would be better at getting me to there. But this would be better at getting me to there. So, if anyone whips up any data about this ever for fun, include the alternates, probably. Include if there are 2 ideal ways to reach it. If possible, I don't know. 16, we're just going to want to throw a bunch of 2s in a row. So, let's just fill in these gaps real quick before we analyze what's going on. 17 sort of breaks this trend of looking like we got a lot of 8s in a row. We have to do this -1 as our most efficient. And, battery warning. Let me charge. I got to plug in the charger. Whoa, no, not 17. 6, 9. We were reaching 17. 19, we're going to want to make from 20, so we look at 20 first. 20, we're just going to do, we're calling them primes. So, we're going to do 5 times 2 times 2. And that gives me a sum of 9. 19, we got to just subtract 1 from that. So here we have a nice little list to start. Oh, one more gap to fill in. We're going to want to do this -1. That's so efficient. And actually, I guess I'll fill in the last few gaps because I went up to 30. 29, we're definitely going to want to make from 30 -1. Now, 28, I have a question about. Because 28, we could either make from 30 -2, or we could try and double 14. If I double 14, that'll cost 11. If I subtract that 2 from that, that'll cost 12. So my better bet is to double 14. However, that had an alternate, so we do have to put the alternate. All right. So, this is a nice little list. And I'll make sure to save this after the stream and continue it, because not only am I interested in this for my personal reasons, but I think this creates an interesting question. It is, like I said, going to be sort of a twist on something that's been researched. I'll make an episode about that's still so underrated, even though it's research called integer complexity. But this is different because we have a linear path that we are spiking up and downward instead of using parentheses anywhere. And integer complexity is just altogether different as well. It's just they end up being related, but on the surface they are a bit different of questions. Now here, most of the things I've seen that approach any question like this start with you get multiplication and addition, then we'll add subtraction if we want. But I haven't seen much where you need to start with a number, but after that, which remember we can assume that this was our pool starts at 1 and our first one was at times. So theoretically I could put times in front of all these if we knew we started at 1. Because we're doing a multiplicative fashion here, so we're starting with the multiplicative identity. Now, I guess I'll fill in that these are just like themselves, by the way, just so we have the full list. I mean, I guess if we're priming them up, then 4 is going to be 2 times 2. But remember that although I put alternates here for that, we're just using 1s and primes. If I didn't just use 1s and primes, there would be so many alternates. Like this could be 4. That could be 2 times 4 or 8 on its own. And the order would have so many variations. I could have switched which order they're in. Like I'm assuming order doesn't matter. I was usually putting the bigger one first, you know. Was I? I don't know. At some point, I started putting the bigger one first. Now, I'm just fixing it so the bigger one's first. I'll stop worrying about that. Now, here we can see the smaller ones are basically just themselves for their cost, and something interesting happens at 6. That happens if we had addition and multiplication, or subtraction and multiplication, or whatever. Because we hit a breaking point. 2 plus 3 and 2 times 3 sent us different directions. This is sort of an evening out point. And before that, It's just different. Like, to make 3, if I go 1 times 2, that's not as big. The only way is to clump it. Gotta clump, gotta clump, gotta clump. 2 options, 2 times 2 or 4. Gotta clump or split. So we had our even point and then our splitting point. Now, this all relates to why 3-even should be in the dictionary. And yes, I made an episode about that in grade -1. There might be another 3-even based episode in grade -2, because at some point I'm going to make an actual petition and stuff, but you got to wait till the time's right. And I've been stacking a large amount of research. So I need to cultivate this research into a digestible form. So, because I'm going to show the world how important 3-evens are. The world knows how important evens are. Evens get their credit. Time to share some of that with the 3-evens. Now, the non-3-evens are much harder to reach here. They have much higher costs. Now, I need to plug this in and grab some water and stuff. So I'm just going to leave this up for a second for you folks to ponder this. And actually, I guess in the background, I'll put on my computer sound and we'll put on one of my beats for a second while I'll take a 1-second water break. And let's see. These are beats I made that you have heard in the background of combo class episodes, but I don't know if you've ever really heard them on their own as beats. So sometimes I've played them, but not all of them for sure. Here's a mysterious one I made a while ago. This is one of the ones that involves some live instruments, some guitar and keyboards, as well as some digital sounds. The digital ones on this I actually recorded from a keyboard. Sometimes I program in notes, as I've shown before, but this was a song I made a while ago that will have vocals over it in a future version, but this is the instrumental, and I made this a while ago, a couple years ago. But the beat on this, although I chopped things in a quite digital fashion, they were recorded from a keyboard mostly, and from an electric guitar for part. So here is one of my beats in the background while you can ponder subtractiplication, and I grab some water. right, folks. That was our little intermission for a moment. Hope you enjoyed our subtractiplications and random beat. I have so much music to show you guys at some point. I love making music in addition to doing things like math, and quite a variety of styles I have done in the past. And if I told you I've released over 20 album-length things of music, you probably wouldn't believe me, but it's true. I've probably released about, some of them I call mixtapes because some of them were rapping over other people's beats as opposed to crafting all the song myself. So probably released about 20 mixtapes and about 10 albums. And I will show you, they're very buried. You won't find them easy. I've used different names at different times. So someday I will share more about that part of my history. Now, somebody's noting subtractiplication is another way to think about positional number systems. And if we have an infinite amount, it definitely represents those purely. It's like actually a full representation. If we give ourselves an infinite amount, as we saw with the balanced bases. And I might have to make a bonus video about that random fact I thought about how, the amount of minuses we get, the amount of pluses we get, plus 1 will always work for the base, even if it's imbalanced. And which makes sense when you think about modular arithmetic, which I will also talk about more, our good old modular clock-like way of looking at math. When you think about it that way, it makes a lot of sense, the link between these and bases. But the newest questions, or the deepest questions, which I've had for a while, because I stumbled onto this topic that relates to it called integer complexity through my own fun little investigations similar to this. And when we do the episode about integer complexity that relates to this stuff, which is not exactly the subtractiplication pattern, it's more related to how threes maximize certain things, but I'm almost trying to dodge that with the subtractiplication to find new patterns. But integer complexity is not fully solved, and it was something I had many questions about on my own. That episode will certainly start off with like an old story of me taking notes about pondering this question about numbers and then finding these strange things. And then the way that I found that it was called integer complexity was using the website OEIS I've shown before. This very old text-based website. Old meaning it's still updated, but it looks old, which I like. And it's the online encyclopedia of integer sequences. And you can search up a list of numbers and see if that's been documented with notes about it. And so I looked up the cost under not this question, but a different question I had related to numbers somewhat similar to this. I looked up like this list, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 7, 6, 6. Like, in fact, for fun, later I'll look this up on the OEIS. I don't think this one will be on there. But you never know, because back in the day, I have stumbled into various fun things that I found, but I was like, this probably has a name because it's simple enough. And then the way I found the name was by looking up, like, some list, like, the cost of each number in a row. And then you see, oh, this is this thing they have. However, this is a different question than integer complexity, because not only does that only allow ones, but it also always allows addition, multiplication, and an infinite amount of parentheses. And that the parentheses change it a lot. And the always getting an infinite amount of them changes it a bit. And another big change is that all the twists on it that I've seen research on, and once again, it's not solved yet, but the twists I've seen incorporate subtraction along with addition. I haven't seen many that just do subtraction and multiplication, which you can't get anywhere, like we said, unless you allow either you to consider that the first number can just be itself, or we could call that our pool of numbers starts at 1, a multiplicative identity, and we began all these with times. So the subtraction is leading to some new questions that I am going to craft into the most fun card game of all time that will have an intense amount of strategy. And anyone who studies this list will have a slight head start in the game, even though it's a little bit different than this. Because to try and briefly explain, if these are your energy things you're planting to make this, or this is the cost you're trying to make, and you might be able to make it turn 6 because these are your energies you're building. Well, let's say you don't always get to play this on its own. Sometimes you have to play it on an energy stack. Sometimes you've been playing face-down cards to represent these energy stacks. This would be a face-down stack of 2, another face-down stack of 2, and another face-down stack of 2, which would take you 6 turns to build. Well, maybe you also need to sometimes plant these on top of one of the face-down things. So what I'm actually going to do in my game, as just a little sneak preview, this is veering off from the math and more toward how I'm going to turn this into fun, is nothing's going to cost 1 through 4, at least not yet. If they ever did, I'll make sure any future game designers who make variations on my set, which if I ever have people helping me, which I'll need, there will be certain rules for them to follow about you're not supposed to be able to play anything on the first 6 turns, because in my game, you actually start with 0 cards in your hand, and you're sort of drawing them in batches and filtering them. And each turn you sort of draw 3 cards, starting from nothing. And one goes face down in a zone that's sort of like your hand. One goes face down in a zone that's sort of like your energy. And there is a third zone that's sort of like your health or life total, which one also goes to. But you get sort of a filtration process to build your hand over the first 6 turns, as you've hit 18 cards, actually, 6 of which go to this lifelike zone, 6 of which get planted how you want as energy, and 6 of which go to your hand in your own filtration. This is sort of like in the game Magic the Gathering. I studied, I played that a lot as a kid, and I'm kind of geeking out about restudying it. Like, I'm not planning on buying more cards or anything, but looking them up online and the math behind them. There will be some content I will make of analyses of like the best Magic cards ever, the worst Magic cards ever, the mistakes in game design that were made over the 30 years of Magic, the really good things of game design they've done over the 30 years. I'm kind of geeking out about taking notes about that, so I will turn it into content. I can't help it. So people who don't care about that game, trust me that I will turn it into a general analysis as well of what makes a game good. Now, because that is the oldest in many metrics, Magic the Gathering is the first game of this sort that I hope to build, which is a game where you have a batch of cards. Mine's different because I want people to be able to get the full sets easily. I want them to be able to get a good starter deck that actually is the full set. But I like the idea of expansions later where you have new cards that then players, part of the game is how you build your deck. Part of the game is a personal creative process before you play the opponent. Now, when I make my game, I will make a starter set where you get a starter deck. You don't have to think about that. You can play with the starter deck. But I'm also going to make it so that you could work other cards into your starter deck from other things I'll make, because you see, this is only covering positive numbers. When I make variations, there are going to be particular stretches of the number line. There will be a sequel that will be the fraction version. There will be a sequel where you're trying to hit negatives for costs. There will be a sequel, maybe, where you're trying to hit imaginary and complex numbers as costs. Imagine how crazy that would be. Times 2i plus I times 1 plus I. Stuff like that would just go crazy trying to build different costs. So that will be in the future. First, we have to make it digestible enough. And one of the ways I'm going to ensure that you can build your hand over the first 6 turns is going to be that I'm not going to make anything cost these, but if they cost this amount in the future, they would have to be at certain altitudes that you must plant them on for them to be able to be played. What I mean by that is that these ones that cost 7 or more, some of them might need to be planted on like another. I also had a 1 energy hill face down that I could put it on top, but not necessarily. Ones that cost 7 might just be able to be played on their own as a card. But ones that cost 6, have to be on some sort of hill, and that guarantees they can't be played till turn 7. If I make any that cost 5 or 6, because those end up being playable on turn 5. Oh yeah, when I said ones that cost 6, I meant ones playable on turn 6, how it seems. Ones that cost 8 or 9 must be on a hill. Ones that cost 5 or 6 must be on a hill of size at least 2. By hill, I sort of mean like this energy stack I have built. So there's going to be a way that in my game, I'm sort of going to ensure that 7 is actually the minimum that you're able to do. So that might sound weird because you don't know all the rules to my game. So we can sort of ignore that lower stretch and know that the cards in that lower stretch are going to have restrictions to play them so that we can't build them too quick. Oh, Dandelion. Look, we got Dandelion. Hi, Dandelion. Come here. Who's Dandelion? You see my Dandelion? Come here, Dinosaur. Come closer. Do you see my Dandelion? It's hard to show. Dandelion, come over here. He like blends in so much. Do you see my Dandelion? That's my Dandelion. He came in the window. Dandelion is the fluffiest cat on the block. Well, actually, he has a clone who's like, so I named the cats after plants that also have like double meanings. Sometimes like dandelion is a dandy lion. Come here, dinosaur. Who's my dandelion? Who's my dandelion? Who's the fluffiest cat? Well, I want to call you the fluffiest cat on the block, but you have a clone. And we adopted them from pretty nearby, and so I think they're clones who live on the neighborhood, some of which are strays, one of which I adopted, might actually be related. Like, Dandelion's brother, Sage, has a clone who's a feral cat who snuck his way into the house and now is a member of the family named Sassafras, who I adopted because he was so nice. And actually, Sassafras bonded with Dandelion, funny enough. And Sassafras, the stray guy, follows Dandelion everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in the window in a minute. And he, like, loves Dandelion and just, like, copies him. And it's so cute because Dandelion lets him. Because Dandelion's a really nice boy. Because I was going to say, if he's not the fluffiest boy on the block, if he's only tied for it with his clone, who I call Daffodil, well, he's the nicest cat on the block. Dandelion is so funny and sweet, and he's like a little alien, and he's so different. I'll show you the footage sometime of how he lures people. He wants pets more than anything. All he wants is pets. He doesn't care about food. He doesn't know how to catch any birds. He sometimes likes playing with little things if you throw little apples for him to bat around and stuff. But he just wants pets, really. And he's on a mission for his pets. Are you on a mission? Oh, it's really hard to show you. It's hard to angle this. Come here, dinosaur. Who's my beautiful little dinosaur? It's like pitch black to see my dinosaur. There we go. That's my beautiful dinosaur. Now we can see you better when I turned up that light. Come here. Don't you want to make a cat meow? Don't you want to make a little cat meow? That's my dinosaur. He's funny because he seems so fluffy and sweet and nice, but he's also a wilderness boy. He'll like go out in thorns and mud, and he doesn't care. But he would never hurt. Normally you say they would never hurt a fly, is the expression. But Dandelion might like to catch a fly. He would never hurt anything larger than a fly. So, okay, sorry for the cat break to anyone who doesn't care, but I love my cats so much, and Dandelion is sort of like a little mascot in combo class because he's made a lot of good cat meows. Anyway, we should probably get back to the other stuff, but later I'll show you footage of how he lures people by flopping out and doing his first technique is he'll go up to you and say hi. If that doesn't get him pets, the second technique is he'll run in front of you and slide out all flopped up on his back, like with all his arms in the air. The third technique, if that doesn't work, he's somehow learned this is cute. He's like a mastermind of learning which techniques are cute. He will stretch as long as he can. And it's funny because he's not doing it to stretch. Like when you start petting him, he switches position. He was like, okay, successfully lured. Now I'll go in the position I want, pet me, which I'm okay with. I'll pet him all day. But he somehow figured out that going really long is cute to people and gets him more pets. People think he's dumb because he's like clumsy and stuff, but he's a genius secretly because people think he's dumb because he doesn't go for what cats normally go for. It's like he put out a special cat treat. He's like, whatever. A bird flies by. He's like, whatever. But he has a goal and he achieves his goal. The goal is pets. And he's really good at achieving that goal. Here he is right now and he's going to achieve his goal right now some more. I'm petting him. But I would call that smart if he has a goal and he's really good at achieving it. So, thank you to everyone who's still around despite our little cat break. He's still hanging out here, so we'll get some more dandelion features in the corner, I'm sure. Someone asked, how's my day? Oh, I've had some hard days recently. Today was not too bad. It was... I'm going through a lot of personal things and complicated things I can't fully explain yet, but today was pretty good in the sense that I had COVID like a week ago, and now I don't. So I only tested negative a few days ago. So now, luckily, I'm feeling good enough that I'm feeling more normal. So that is quite good. And I'm feeling good about working upward toward many goals I have to achieve this year. And we're off to a slow start in January because I was sick. But we're going to get off to a quick start in the rest of January and February. So my day was not bad. Now that Dandelion's here and my combo lords are in the chat, my day is even better. Now, I was thinking, although I love doing our subtractiplications and we could, keep doing these for a while, I could keep inventing more of these things because I know that this would be this. Despite that, I think that we might want to take a little visit to our good old combo classroom. Because I love the combo classroom getting a feature in our videos. I like it to be one of the main backdrops. I've been experimenting more with different locations because that's fun, but it's extra fun when we get a little combo classroom mixed in with that. So perhaps we should take a night visit to our strange, semi-broken realm. Now you see, you're going to get a sneak preview of some of the chaos that has ensued in the past episode that I'm still filming. Not the egg one, not the one that's out. The one that cursed me, that I'm almost done filming. Don't worry, I think I've filmed the most cursed parts. The rest of the parts I'm filming are in nice sunny locations, talking about numbers. I think I undid the curse. But somebody's saying, sorry to hear I had it, and they're glad I'm feeling good. Thank you. I'm not going to... Oh, here's my dandy tour. We're not going to fully talk about it right now, but there is a lot of complicated stuff in my life as well, and I will like to share all those details in either videos or written memoirs at some point. But for now, I'll just say that if there's any slower content at any times, just know that sometimes I deal with stuff like any human, and that it will not mean at any point that I want to slow down on my channels. I have bigger and bigger goals coming up. Now that I'm not sick, we can get back to achieving them. I love how the channels are doing, despite it being like, there's never like a huge amount of people in the live streams. Some videos do better or worse than others because the algorithms and stuff. I'm still very happy I've been doing combo class. I've been releasing stuff for combo class less than 2 years. And we have 2 channels of decent size, so let's get them up to big size by grade -4 or something. Now, I also, one thing I will give a spoiler about, of one thing I've been working on that's been taking up a little time. I may move out at some point before too long, because I'm living with my parents, and I have for a while. And when I move out, it won't be very far. It's going to be in the neighborhood somewhere, so that I can visit the combo classroom. And I'm still going to do most of my filming at my parents' house here, because that's where the combo classroom is. But I'm going to possibly move out somewhere where I can set up a better studio for live streaming and stuff. So I'm clearing out my whole room. You guys can't see that part of the room. It's filled with junk. Not panning the camera that way. Nope, no matter how much you ask. This way I'll pan the camera, because there's a beautiful little dandelion. But I'm not panning it the other way because I'm cleaning my room and it's full of junk. But dandelion, you saying hi to them? Are you saying hi to them, dandelion? Oh yeah, you're saying hi to them. Look at his royal mane. So I named him Dandelion because he was fluffy like a dandelion, and because he was a dandy lion. But he was tiny when I got him. We fostered them. So when you foster kittens, they're like babies that can barely move and stuff. And you're like, you feed them different types of stuff, and you're trying to adjust them to human life, so they like think humans are cool. And then you give them back to the shelter to give to other foster families and eventually an owner. And we had him and his brother Sage, and he was so small. He was 6 weeks old when we got him first. 6 weeks old. He was about this big. So maybe a little bigger, maybe about that big. And he was a ball of fluff. And his brother was Silky. And, oh, I love them too much. Could not give them back to the shelter. You're allowed to do what's unofficially known as a failed foster, where you keep the cats. They know it happens to some families, so they have it like, if you foster the animal and you like it too much, you're allowed to adopt it. So we got them as little fluff balls. I named him Dandelion because I knew he'd be fluffy, but I didn't know how much he would live up to his name, because look at his royal mane. He grew the most royal mane because he's a lion. And he's the most gentle lion of all time. He's like what you'd have in a children's story. Like a little lion who's so gentle, and he's the king because he doesn't care about drama and stuff. So he actually is like the king. Like, he'll wander around, just be like, you're getting in a cat fight? Nope, I don't care. So nobody messes with him. Because, you know, you ever have like a friend or something who's just like super confident, and it works out for them because they're confident in like a chill way where they're just like, you know, hard to explain. I'll explain more about the dandelion phenomena later. But Dandelion is the king of the jungle by being really gentle and just not caring about the drama. Now, to all the combo lords around, I think, I'm still patting him, but he's a little out of frame. I think we're going to take a little visit to our combo classroom. So I need to put on some shoes. We'll put the camera where maybe we can get a dandy angle while I put on the shoes. And then we can take a visit. You're so dark fluffed. I need a lighter blanket to show my dandelion. Oh, there you are. There's my dandelion. Oh, you got a little thing stuck in you. Let's get this little thing out. You have a little thing stuck in you. Throw that back out the window. There's Dome. He often gets weird stuff stuck in him. This is one of my little angels. Okay, let me put on my shoes, Dandelion. Sorry, you can hang out here, but we're taking a little field trip. He's like, where did you go? Where's the pets? Okay, I'll pet you with one hand and put on my shoes with one hand. Okay. I'll chat while I pet Dandelion with one hand and put on my shoe with the other hand because he's kind of hard to abandon. So later we'll get more footage maybe of my other little babies because Sage is his brother who's as wise as a sage and as soft as a little sage plant or like silky like. Dandelion's made of pure like cotton. Sage is made of pure like velvet. They have the nicest textures. Then Sassafras looks like a clone of Sage. Apart from he got his ear clipped is something they do when you adopt a feral cat. They have like a policy of clipping the ear. So he has a clipped ear. And he doesn't have a little bow tie. Like you see how Dandelion has a little white spot on his neck? Sage, despite being really silky, has the same bow tie. Because he is Dandelion's brother. Now a weird thing that not everyone knows is that cats can have multiple dads with the same mom. The mom can get pregnant from one dad, and then another dad can get her pregnant and add another baby. And so there can be a litter of cats from one mom that have multiple dads. Oh, are you flopping out? He loves getting his belly rubbed. But, so I think that maybe they had the same mom but different dads or something because, I don't know, I have these weird theories about how there's all these cats on the block and we adopted them nearby. All the feral cats or like neighborhood cats look like clones of them. It's so weird. Even Dandelion, who looks weird and different, has a clone who I call Daffodil. Daffodil's very shy. And then Sage's clone is Sassafras, who now lives in the house because he was so sweet and like just wanted a little home. And now Sassafras loves his home. And he treats Dandelion like his little big brother because Dandelion is confident and knows, just like goes around the house and gets his pets. And Sassafras loves pets also. So he just follows Dandelion and learns. Dandelion learned a lot from Sage too. Sage is like the smartest by far. Dandelion's smart in his own weird, silly way, but Sage is like agile and like clever. Dandelion's the fluffiest. Sorry, this is a long break because I get so distracted with my little love boys. They're so nice. When I have been in pretty bad states of depression, I can't explain how much these boys have helped me out. These boys have maybe saved my life before. So, Dandy Shore, we got to take a field trip. All right. Now I'm going to try and pet him with one hand and put on my shoes with one hand. So, in the combo classroom, some things are going to look a little bit chaotic because it has been some wild filming sessions. It's semi-cleaned up, but you'll notice some differences from last time, and you keep your eye on the differences if you want to play it's a fun type of puzzle. Look at what's different about the combo classroom from what you remember, and then imagine how it got that way, or if it relates to something weird happening. And then keep an eye out in the next episode that's going to come out on the Convo Class channel and see if any of your predictions were correct. Okay, Dandelion, I can't tie the shoes with one hand. I'm sorry. I got to pause on the pets. I wish you folks could pet him through the screen. I know you wish you could too. Look how fluffy that is. Okay. I love animals. I especially like cats. Dogs are cool too. But as far as like a pet, I am a cat person. I think that cats are underrated. I think that these cats even have many dog-like traits that some people assume only dogs have, but actually dogs and cats can have, such as these guys come when they're called. They like playing. You can play with balls and stuff with them, and they'll bat them around. And other like sort of dog-like assumed traits. Cats can have those as well. Dad, such a big fluffy mane you have. How'd you get such a big fluffy mane? And it's so cute. They get like sun-dyed. When they're in the sun in the summer, their hair turns golden orangish instead of black. And his mane like kept the golden orange tint. And then in the winter, they get fluffier. So now he's like at his extra fluffy because it's the winter and he genetically or whatever gets fluffier in the winter. It's smart. That's so smart. Okay. Putting on my other shoes so we can take a little field trip. And the other animals I've been bonding quite a lot with, of course, as you may know, are the squirrels. I have been still feeding the squirrels and collecting a large amount of footage because there's going to be an episode that's going to be more of like, oh, Dandelion's playing with the shoelace. Get it. Get it. Oh, no, he's playing over here. He's being funny. He's playing with the shoelace. But also, by the way, these cats, they'll play and they can be savage when they play with their claws. But they've never bit or scratched me once, including the feral one. So, the squirrels, I've been collecting a large amount of footage about, and there will be an episode someday that will be about the squirrels and or about the cats, because the nature around here I get some great footage of that doesn't fit in random episodes always. And the squirrels have gone through some fun generations of growing more and more friendly with me. There's even particular squirrels with little defects that I've grown to know. For example, there's one squirrel. Dandelion got my shoelace. I gotta tie the shoe, silly head. Okay. There's one squirrel that has like a defective leg. It's weird. It was born, I'm assuming, because it doesn't look like cut or injured or like it hurts, but it has this like kind of crooked leg or something, but not like it's broken. It's like weird. It almost looks like a birth defect. And I can recognize that one. So there's like particular ones that I like know, oh, it's that squirrel. And I feed them whole walnuts, which are good if you give them just some in their diet. I also have a neighbor who, it turns out, she feeds them on the porch. One of the neighbors who shares the yard with me. So they're all over the yard. And the squirrels, not all the neighbors like, because they do kind of eat some of the fruits on the trees. I know some of my neighbors are not as big of a fan of the squirrels and probably not the biggest fan of me encouraging the squirrels, but I like them. They're really cool. So let's take a little field trip. As I transition us, this will take a second. So we're going to have to go back to numberations and I guess another one of my beats. So I guess I'll throw on another one of my instrumentals I have made. Here will be one that I made digitally. The one I played earlier, I said it was digitally made, but mostly the sounds were made using a keyboard and a guitar. The keyboard even like using drum tones, like, the type of keyboard that has a lot of sounds. And because I play many instruments, but I'm not great at drums. And let's look at one that I made more digitally, I guess. Here's one I made more digitally. I forget which ones I've shown or not, but here's one. And I'll put this on for a second while I transition us, and we will go back to numberations for a minute. All right, whoops. I guess that was 2 beats worth, but we're on our way to the combo classroom. Had to take care of something on my way out. Here we'll take our little visit. I don't have a light, so hopefully the computer light's good enough. I should have brought a flashlight or something. But we are about to appear in our classroom. And as we can see, things are a bit chaotic back here. This was from a previous episode, and I left. Sometimes when you leave stuff on a whiteboard, it's really hard to erase. That is like impossible to erase now. It's weird. I need to find some way to erase that. Luckily, I have many whiteboards. But these are some other things, such as a large abaci and a smaller abaci, and things that will make sense for the next episode. And like I said, you may see some additional clues of things around here if you want to see any, I guess, sneak previews of any chaos that occurred. In any case, I can't fully set down the laptop. I'm kind of holding it on top of an abacus right now because the other surfaces are quite wet. It's been raining a lot back here. Even floods a little bit, but not as bad as the floods we got near the end of grade -1. We'll see if it occurs that bad later or not. In any case, I mostly wanted to just take a brief visit out here, but we're not going to be streaming too much longer. So hopefully all of you enjoyed looking at some fun numberations and stuff. If you want to take this further, which I certainly will, I'll share my list later. I'm going to continue this, seeing which ones have which cost, which ones have which alternate cost, and what are the patterns? You know, where are the numbers that are lower or higher than their neighbors and such? So this is, of course, just using multiplication and subtraction with a starting point of 1 as our reset at the beginning, so we can multiply to begin. We could also look more at multiplication and addition as not fully investigated, or multiplication and subtraction. As we mentioned, if we have an infinite amount and we don't care how many of them we add up to, it represents bases. But when we look at the sum of them and the cost in a certain way, we get to unsolved questions. So let's, first make some episodes to explain those and then see if any of us can help solve any of those questions. Some of them have been solved, some haven't. Now, these are fun things I've been investigating. There are other just purely mathematical topics I'll be doing in the next main combo class episode, despite having a big section near the beginning about a number some people think is cursed. Does also have other sections about what it means to be a large number. And in some ways, a lot of my episodes tie back to older episodes, so I don't want to call them a sequel or whatever, because they tie back to multiple episodes. But in some ways, this is a sequel to my most popular video, which was about tetration. I mean, not my most popular video counting shorts, but my most popular long-form horizontal video was one on the combo class channel in grade -1 that has recently passed 400,000 views. That is so freaking awesome. But that one about tetration explained chains of operations beyond exponentiation. It briefly hinted at the higher levels like pentation and then hexation. Now, if tetration feels weird, pentation's starting to get a little hard to understand even, and hexation is where you start to get to the point where it's like you need layers to understand it. So we're looking a little bit about hexation because it'll make sense in the concept of the episode. We're also going to hint at a type of number I've developed myself when I was looking at my own version of what some call googology, of the study of very large numbers, ways of creating formulas where maybe the first element is 1 and the second element is 5 and the third element's 1 billion, and then the fourth element's indescribable. There are some sequences like that, some of which are popular, like the tree 3 number that some people know about is part of a sequence. And there's even the lowercase tree and uppercase tree are different sequences. The one people usually know is the uppercase tree number 3. That's a sequence where the first element's 1, The second element, I think, is 3 or something small like that. And the third element is undescribably massive. And I have created my own sequences like that, which I call sandwich numbers. And we're going to hint at those a tiny bit at the end of this episode. It's not going to have room in the episode to go in my full, like, meta sandwich numbers. If we want to make really, really big numbers with, like, super sandwich numbers, like some of these numbers could be bigger than tree 3, I don't know. I mean, obviously I can make one that is bigger, but I mean, some of the low elements of some of these sequences are like that indescribable size. I don't know how to compare them to that because we don't know that much data about either tree 3 or about my numbers, but there's certainly, I have made some that are far bigger than Graham's number at a lower stage of the operation, to anyone who knows that. Far bigger than Googleplex. And like Googleplex is a grain of sand compared to Graham's number, and some of my super sandwich numbers that even like some of the super sandwich 3 or whatever are like Graham's number's a grain of sand at those. Now, there are various ways. Don't quote me on that this type will be called super sandwich or that type will be called sandwich. I made up a lot of types of number that reminded me of sandwiches. And they also remind me of a book of equations, an infinitely long book with infinitely large pages, and that will be part of it. And then maybe, if we want to take it further, you know, you don't just have a sequence, you have a sequence on a page. Then you have a page in a book. Then I thought, what do you have next? You have a book in a bookshelf. So if we want to take these super sandwich numbers far enough, depending on which layer you go to, you might be on sequence, page, book, bookshelf, library, island, planet. These are just nicknames, but a layer that they'll all mean the same thing. Like, you know, if I nickname them that, planet to island will be the same relationship as island to library or whatever. It's stepping back a layer, essentially. Somebody asked if we're getting into ordinals, and we're actually not yet getting into those. Ordinals relate to counting methods of numbers that help you describe infinite sizes, and we are going to go into those at some point. Our first taste of those, I don't know if we're going to be using ordinals as much, but there will be an episode before long that deals with infinities. The topic of the episode that we're going to do in this grade, probably about that, will relate to what's known as Cantor's diagonalization argument, for those who know that. But the approach of the episode, for people who don't know about that, is the idea of, if we're comparing infinite sizes and we say, are there more square numbers than whole numbers? When does it make sense to say yes or no? In a lot of senses, it makes sense to say, if we're looking at all of them, there's the same amount. We can use other metrics like natural density to say there's more whole numbers than square numbers to a certain point. But looking at the whole amount, it's like there are the same number of square numbers and natural numbers in most ways of looking at it. So are there the same number of fractions? Are there the same number of algebraic irrationals? Are there the same number of non-algebraic irrationals? At some point in that chain, we reach a different infinity. So I want to show like why it's like square numbers to whole numbers to fractions to this to that. When do we reach the different type of infinity? Because we do at some point. And then we'll dip our toes into Cantor's diagonalization argument to explain a classic proof of why a certain type of infinity should be considered bigger than another. Somebody asked for a taco number, and yes, with our sandwich numbers, we can make all sorts of variations. We can make burger numbers and euro numbers, and we can make burritos, and we can make all sorts of things with our sandwich numbers. So, somebody said I should put isopropyl alcohol on it. And something like that could work. I'll find a way to get it off when we need. I kind of like it as a backdrop. I like callbacks, so I don't mind if this thing's hanging out there for a little bit longer. It's a callback to an episode we did recently. But in any case, I'll need to get it off sometime because I only have so many whiteboards and they break at some point. Once the other ones break, this one will get cleaned. No, I'm joking. At some point, I'll need all of them, and I'll just clean them. Me and Carlo work hard back here. I have a guy, Carlo, I hire. He's my friend and my camera guy, but I also hire him. He's also my employee, and not an official employee, but he helps with the combo class, and I help him. And we work hard back here. So one of these days, we will have a hard work day where we do that. The last hard work day was cleaning up broken glass, because some of that occurred in the episode. So stay tuned for that. Somebody asked, when I record my videos, do I memorize a script? That's actually a really good question. So, no, for the most part. I don't have exact words that I've either memorized or that I'm looking at any point. But I have a lot of brainstorms. So I love writing, but I write sort of chaotic brainstorms. So when I have a brainstorm for an episode, it's like more words than are in the episode, but not fully structured. I take notes as I research and as I think, and then I try and clump them together to be all the notes I have on that subtopic when I'm making the episode to reference. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, I recorded for 3 minutes. Let me look at all my notes on my computer. And sometimes the notes on the computer end up relatively similar to a sentence I say, but the actual sentences I say are pretty rarely something that I've pre-written. I like having a little degree of real life, to the degree to which I'm being silly, you could maybe call it improv. To the degree to which I'm being natural, you could just call it living life, or, being a real life thing. But I do like coming up with the sentences to a degree as I'm saying them. As I'm saying a sentence, sometimes I like figuring it out and building it right there. It's based on a lot of notes I've taken, but the notes are not really sentences that I'm going to say in the episode. They're these crazy amount of sentences that are ideas about, hey, what if I start the episode with this mood and talk about this topic in this light, or whatever. So I like pre-direct myself, reference those in between. So the only time when I'm like referencing a direct like text like thing would be if I'm citing a list of numbers that I don't have memorized. I might have that written down in my notes. Here's the list of numbers to say. So that I might have to, you could almost call that scripted, that when I'm saying like, okay, this sequence goes 7, 12, 8, 4, 11, and I have that written, you could call that scripted, I guess. But the sentences I say, I like to have a little degree of free form, almost improv-like nature. So it's not scripted, and you can especially see that in the live streams and the bonus videos, which I haven't done any of in a while, but not in the past half year really, but a while, not a while ago, but half a year ago, I had been posting some bonus videos on this channel that were all one take, and they were almost like a chunk of a live stream. But right before them, I would be like studying my notes and stuff a little bit, but then I would talk for like 15 minutes in one take. And when you talk for 15 minutes and you're someone like me who's sort of like chaotic, working on this and then that and working on this and then that and then getting dirty in the mud and then time to film, you don't have all of your notes memorized. So I often don't even get to all my notes when I'm doing the episodes. And later I'm like, oh man, I missed this part. We'll have to put that in a later episode. But I don't know. That's sort of long answer to, they're not really scripted, but I take a crazy amount of free-form-ish notes that during the official combo class episodes, I reference every, hour of filming or whatever. which an hour of filming, is probably a few minutes of footage. So every few minutes of footage, I might reference my notes, but they don't really give me the sentences, I'm going to say. So hopefully that answers that question. If anyone has any other questions, leave them really quick, because I don't think we're going to be able to go too long. I got to, calculate some more stuff on my own and work on a variety of things. But in any case, I'll be back soon, because now that I'm healthy again, I'm going to post some stuff for the Patreon people tonight or tomorrow morning, like I said I've been going to. And then I'm going to post a short tomorrow or the next day. And I'm going to post a bonus video before long. And I'm not going to specify when I'm going to live stream, because I just like to do that whenever I have 2 hours and a topic in my head. So the live streams will just come every few days. So hopefully everybody had some fun in our live stream. Remember, these go on a live tab after the fact, so if you missed any of it, will be accessible along with all the other live streams. And make sure you're extra tuned into the combo class channel, like I linked in the description. The egg episode, which even if you don't care about a snack break I make, it's quite chaotic and does have interesting science as well. And what I would say from there would, if I was trying to be a hustler, I'd be like, go to the Patreon, go to the Discord and stuff. But I'll just say, look in the description if you want any cool links. I'm not going to push you any direction. There are cool links in the description. And about the question of will I get back to making bonus videos, certainly I've had a lot going on in my life with the sicknesses and with other things the past couple months. So I've had many bonus videos I plan to make, and I even filmed one at night here, a chaotic one, because I do them in one take, so they don't always work out. Some bonus videos get scrapped because I do them in one take, then look at how they were. One bonus video a while ago I only posted to Patreon because I filmed it at the marina area near here, and it was so windy that the wind noises were just chaos. Another one I recently filmed, which is the one I'm going to post on the Patreon tonight or tomorrow morning. I'll try and do it tonight. I've been saying I'll do it for a while. I'll try and do it tonight. And that one got scrapped just because it wasn't the best description of what I wanted to do for the bonus video, so I want to redo it. So the Patreon people will get the chaotic night version, and then everyone will get the real daytime version that I'll refilm next week. And thank you to the last comment that recommended something called deterministic finite automation. And they say it's somewhat similar to the numberations. So I will certainly look into that subtopic. Or do you, automaton, it says. I don't know if you mean automation or automaton. But that certainly reminds me of different automated processes and things. So I'll look into that subset at some point. Thank you for the reference. Now, to everyone, I love you so much. I love you almost as much as I love Dandelion. So I'll see you again soon, and make sure to, if you're bored, look at some more old live streams on the live tab, or the Combo Class channel has playlists now, stuff like that. In any case, I'll catch you again before too long, and that fun stuff will be coming in the next few days, and the semi-cursed episode will be coming this weekend. Bye.